Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen living some kind of life on the tropical island of St. Bart's, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Dennis coming to you from the entertainment capital of the world, New York City. And if you don't already know, you're listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers
and Sister.
Ooh, that's right, Ellen. And today we have another great guest, Kat Morrill. Ellen, tell us a little bit about Kat.
I'd be happy to. Kat is a New York-based lighting designer and programmer, originally from the Southwest United States. Her lighting career began in southern Utah, where she worked as a lighting technician and programmer at Tuacahn Amphitheater and her alma mater, Utah Tech University. She later worked as head electrician at Northern Stage and as a follow spot and console operator at Cirque du Soleil's O. Kat then shifted her focus to design, earning an MFA from Brooklyn College in 2024. She was assistant lighting designer for Ben Stanton on the Broadway hit Maybe Happy Ending. She made her off-Broadway design debut with Unconditional at SoHo Playhouse and has designed multiple productions for Northern Stage and Norwegian Cruise Lines. Kat teaches EOS programming at Brooklyn College and can also be found running lights for cabaret performances at 54 Below or working on exhibit lighting at the Guggenheim. Kat and her wife live in Manhattan, delightfully close to her twin sister and co-conspirator Amanda Morrill. Kat is a proud member of USA 829 and of the St. Regis Mojawk Tribe. Welcome to Light Talk.
Welcome,
Thank you
Kat.
so much. Thank you.
I'd like to kick this right off. You were mentored by Ben Stanton, who's part of our Lumen family, and we did a conversation with Ben a few weeks ago, and you are now a guest yourself. But I reached out to Ben to ask him, what would he ask Kat Morrill if he were hosting this show? And he told me I would be curious to hear Kat talk about what's been the most difficult part of the transition from graduate school to the professional world. What surprised her the most about that transition? And what's been easier than expected, if anything? Ben also said, I asked this selfishly because I tried my best to share as much insider knowledge as possible with Kat and her classmates, but I'm sure I could always do better. Spoken like Ben himself can only do.
Interesting. Yeah, I think...
I thought that was interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one of the biggest shocks to me was a mindset in approaching like my drafting and, well, overall the work. In school, you're kind of rewarded for going above and beyond, putting extra time into your assignments and, you know, making things look portfolio ready, which is important for joining the union down the road if that's a goal, and hopefully it is. And then once you're working professionally and doing it for money, your time becomes the most valuable thing you've got. So now it's like, I want to put actually the least amount of time into this project that I have to while still delivering a good product, but it just kind of devalues your time to put much effort in above and beyond. So just learning how to work really efficiently, learning what is worth spending a lot of time on and what's not, or what can wait until you're stuck in a theater for a few hours and you have kind of this forced time to concentrate on work so that you can have a little bit of a life balance and actually talk to your partner when you get home or whatever. That has probably been the most difficult thing for me, learning how to spend my time and on what.
The work-life balance is always difficult, and it's always the most surprising. I've been doing this for years. I'm still surprised.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what's the easiest?
Yeah.
What was the easiest move?
The easiest thing is just lighting the shows, actually. I have to I have to toot Ben's horn here a little bit. He teaches a process that makes you really feel like you could take on anything. Where you put all your design choices at the forefront and you really have clear objectives about what your plot needs to be able to do, how you need to communicate to electricians and technicians in order to make that plot work for you. And to my surprise, I mentioned to him recently, like, when I assist you, I didn't realize it would just be an exact continuation of the process you're teaching us in grad school. Like any project he would assign us, a paper project, he was giving us these very intricate sets and set in these like little shoebox New York City venues that are actually, a little tricky to get a good plot hung in. And as I've gone on to assist or associate for him, I feel like I'm just doing more of the assignments that I was given in school. And he was like, yeah, Kat, that's kind of the point. It's like, I'm preparing you to do this process now.
Why did you choose to go to Brooklyn College? I mean, it's a long way from home.
It's a long way from home. And I never really thought, it's not like I had a dream to live in New York City. I am so woefully bad with directions, actually, that it was always very daunting to me, the idea of living here. I was like, I'm going to get lost. It's a huge city. It's impossible. But of course, it's where it feels like all theater happens. And I grew up being introduced to theater through listening to soundtracks from Broadway musicals, or maybe you'd get the chance to watch some pro shot of a show that had been done in New York, reading shows and reading the credits from the initial productions that were always in New York. So it was in the
back.
Were
your parents in the industry or musicians or something?
So
you said you listened to musicals growing up.
I did, yeah. My parents, my father and stepmother had kind of a passive interest in theater. I mean, they like going as spectators, but I think my dad did lighting in high school, which I found out way after I started getting into lighting. And they had the soundtrack to Rent, and I think my twin and I just randomly started listening to it one day. And actually, I sought it out. We were playing in the honor band, the all-county band, because both of us were pretty big band nerds. And one of the pieces of music we were playing was Broadway musicals of the 90s, Broadway hits of the 90s or something like that. And it opened up with the chords from Seasons of Love from Rent. And even hearing, this middle school group ensemble who had never rehearsed together, practiced music on their own, came together to perform it, hearing those opening chords was just like such a powerful moment. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I need to hear more. And I mentioned it to my dad over a phone call. And he said, oh, Seasons of Love is from the musical Rent. I have the soundtrack and you should give it a listen next time you visit me. So I listened to the soundtrack and just fell in love with it. And then that gave me an interest in musicals. So I guess I kept listening throughout high school. And I continued to play in pit orchestras in high school as well.
What do you play?
I play trumpet the best. I am better than nobody at trombone and French horn as well.
Wow, Steve. Who was it that played the tuba? I forgot.
Don Holder.
Don Holder.
Okay.
Really? I had no idea.
But
Maybe
somebody
we get,
played the trumpet.
Don.
But somebody played the trumpet recently too.
Well, I don't know if
we had another musician recently.
We could certainly use a brass section in the theme music, so
Absolutely.
I'll have David reach out there.
That's what I was just thinking. We have the tuba and the trumpet. Let's do it.
And a French horn and a trombone.
I'll practice up and send me some parts.
Did Amanda stay in music?
She did. She continues to drum for musicals. That's her primary interest. She's also she's a doctoral student at Columbia right now, so she's in the city too.
What's she studying?
She's studying ethnomusicology. And specifically, she's interested in musical theater pits. She studies like the social dynamics within the orchestra pit, who gets to play this music, who gets to become a high earner in that realm. It's all very interesting and way above my head.
Can you chat a little bit? You mentioned process a second ago and your relationship with Ben. What's your process when you start working with a new director?
With a new director, lately the process is that we are introduced to each other, and typically they have a lot of needs, urgent needs that they need lighting to fulfill, but the designs have to be pretty economic because the plots are small. They're often rep plots at the level I'm mostly dealing in these days, and they have specific moments in mind. And they basically come to me and say, will you be able to accomplish this? And sometimes before I've even seen what the rep plot is, or before I'll ever have a chance to step foot in the building. So I'd say my process, I'd love to read a script before I talk with them. But even if I don't, just hearing what's important to them, what they're hoping the show will do for people, what they're hoping the lighting will do for them, all of that informs me. Then I read the script. It's a lot of juniors right now. I think I'm about to do a James and the Giant Peach Junior. It's like my next project. And they're fairly entertainment based in their goals, but maybe there's a little something deep in there as well. I start to consider how much visibility do we need versus how much mood can I establish, and start having ideas in mind, talking with whoever I can on the technical side to see what their plot is actually going to be able to accomplish. Or can I bring things in to augment the plot they've got? To do a little bit of art in addition to making parents happy to see their children.
Okay.
And then, I mean, to think about the commercial world, like my designs for Norwegian, for example, they just want energy, and they want energy that's going to match music. So pretty much we're working from a playlist. We're talking about kind of the growth and the waxing and waning of the overall show in terms of energy, in terms of scope of the design, because they will try to stick some solo moments and bring energy down so that we can accelerate toward a climax. Overall, I guess, no matter what, I'm interested in the shape of the piece and finding out, getting on the same page with the director or whoever's in charge of where we think the biggest moments are, where we want people to relax a little, and how lighting can support that. Lately, I'm thinking a lot about lighting as punctuation, I guess.
That's an interesting way to look at things.
Well, I have 2 English teachers among my 4 parents, so...
Oh, there you go. They're big on punctuation.
They're pretty big on it. Mm-hmm.
I'm big on the Oxford comma myself. I argue with people all the time about that.
I'm pro Oxford comma myself.
Me too. Totally.
Okay, great. We'll get along great.
Perfectly. So you said you did Unconventional at the SoHo Playhouse. Was that your first New York show on your own?
I did one smaller, desperate director calling me up, someone I'd worked with in grad school. He said, I need lighting. They told me I'd have a tech. Can you give me 4 hours of your time? I had a soccer game to go to. I said I can do 3. Showed up and programmed it was so old. I can't remember what the console was. I took a photo because it looked like a time machine. This was at Theater for the New City.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe this thing could still run. But I programmed him his 8 cues. He was happy. So technically, I think that was my first paid New York City design. But Unconditional was my first off-Broadway.
What's it like at the SoHo Playhouse? I think we've had other people talk about some of the challenges of working there.
It's a challenging space. It's got a mix of unistrut and regular 1.5-inch pipe. So even like what you think might be a slight move to get a light in the right place is not so slight. You're spending a lot of time on a ladder. If you want something, you pretty much have to figure out how to make it happen yourself, or at least that was my experience there. But that was another instance where a director I worked with in grad school called me up. Initially, she had a lighting designer that she was going to have to use, who kind of came with the venue. That person got too busy, so she got to choose. This happens like a lot to my benefit. It's great. You get to swoop in and kind of save the day. But yeah, you're a one-man band. You're on the ladder. You're programming for yourself. You're trying to make a nice picture for the design or for the director.
I think that was Mexley Kozine who did Job there, and she said the same exact thing, that she was her own electrician, running her own cable, doing her own programming, and that's just the nature of the beast for young designers. Hopefully, though, the show might go on, as it did for her.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of what we could put in that space. It was great.
You mentioned that you worked in Vegas, right? programming or running a follow spot or something for O?
Yeah, I ran Showtrax for O. So 3 follow
How did you
spot
get
tracks.
to Vegas?
There's a little bit of a Southern Utah to Cirque du Soleil pipeline now that I didn't quite take advantage of at the time. But St. George, where I grew up, is only 2 hours away. And I actually lived in Vegas until I was 11 or 12. So I grew up seeing Cirque du Soleil shows when my parents were able to bring us. And I loved it. And it was always a dream job. I applied a few times and never seemed to be able to get the job. You know, I was barely out of college, so it made sense. But I was able to get a job in Vermont as the head electrician at a place called Northern Stage, where I was for almost a year and a half. But then Cirque du Soleil, I had a friend who was working at O, and they said, we need someone who knows what they're doing on a console. Full-time job just opened up, and I think you should apply. And so I applied, and they said, in the end, what won me over for them was the fact that I had management experience. And that was from working at Northern Stage, primarily, overseeing that crew. What they maybe didn't realize at the time was I was managing 2 other people.
You're still managing.
You're still managing, yeah. So that got me in with Cirque du Soleil.
So in your younger years, you're a trumpeter.
Mm-hmm.
How did you do theater? I mean, did you do theater or something in grade school? How did you end up becoming a theater person, actively doing production work, and then a lighting designer? Take us way back.
Way back, yeah. My first experience in theater was playing in the pit for my high school production of Thoroughly Modern Millie. And I had a blast. It was all us band nerds in the pit, you know, enjoying our time as high schoolers, but also playing this pretty great music. That's got a great score. The jazz band pretty much just transplanted into there. And then the next show we did it was a straight play. So I was like, well, my twin and I, we had so much fun doing the play. What are we going to do now if they don't need musicians? We enjoyed some of the people we met and everything. And I had a friend who said, well, you could help me on the lighting crew. I need a console operator and I need to set up all these lights. So I had no clue what I was doing. It was kind of the blind leading the blind, but this very industrious fellow designer who's in the city now too, John Mitchell and I, we pretty much were in charge of like straightening out the lighting around our high school. And he was in charge and I was his second in command. And we staffed all the events at school. We set up lighting for all the plays. And then St. George Musical Theater, the local community group, called Russ Saxton, who ran things at Dixie High, and said, we need spotlight operators. Do you have anybody who can run a spotlight? And Russ said, well, you're in luck. I know 2 people, because my twin had started running a spotlight too. So the designer was thrilled. He was like, I can get 2 spots and they're going to show up and they can basically read each other's minds and know what the other's going to do at any time. So then I did 6 or 7 productions with the community theater on top of being in high school. By the time I was going to college, the designer who I'd met through community theater was the head of production at the school I went to. So he got me working while I was attending school.
This was Utah Tech.
This was all, Utah Tech.
Yeah. Huh.
And were you there for a BFA or a BA? What was the concentration there?
There were no concentrations. You could either have a Bachelor of Science in Theater or a Bachelor of Arts, and the difference was 2 years of language classes. So I'm not sure why that's the way they drew the line, but I actually have a Bachelor of Science in Theater, which is maybe one of the weirder degrees you can get.
Wow. Have you heard of that, Steve?
Actually, I was thinking the same thing. I did a dodgy thing because I didn't want to have to do a language requirement either. So I followed a similar path at the University of Tennessee when I was there doing my undergraduate degree.
It's funny because my undergraduate degree is from Temple University, and it's a Bachelor of Science in Radio, Television, and Film Production. So go figure.
But you were also an alum of Kat School.
Of Brooklyn College.
Yeah.
But that's where I got my MFA later than Temple. The BS came before the MFA. But my MFA is in Arts Administration and Theater Management. So the next question I guess we should ask you is, how do you stay up to date with the latest technology?
It's tough. As a designer, I'm not really getting access to the latest technology and at the level I'm designing at. But luckily, I associate and I assist people who are working at higher levels. So I spy a lot. I obviously get to look very closely at Ben Stanton's light plots and use the gear that he gets to use. And I also have found online communities to be really useful for staying up to date with this information. There's a few Discord servers I belong to that are for either specific software tools in the industry, or they're just places for industry professionals to kind of gather and hang out. And you get an interesting mix of gearheads, technicians, shop repair people, high schoolers who are super enthusiastic and post links to every new thing that comes out, and then designers who actually say, well, here are the benefits and here are the drawbacks to some of this gear, and here's what I find it interesting for, and here's what is not so great. But I've learned quite a bit just by lurking on these online communities.
Do you go to any trade shows like LDI or USITT or?
This is my biggest thing I miss about living in Las Vegas was I would go every year and at least check out the exhibit floor to LDI. Nowadays, it's hard. I need somebody to pay me to go.
Right.
I feel like I can't quite afford to plan to take off work. And if something comes up, I feel like I've been in tech for every LDI that's happened for the last 5 years.
Can you hang out at go see the PRG folks and check out what's new in the shop and stuff like that?
One of the odd jobs I work is lighting prep for Broadway shows when I can get it, which is a great way to earn a day rate. And I should look at more gear while we're there. But even while prepping that gear, you get exposed to it. You see a little bit of what it can do as we're configuring settings and all that. And I see a lot of shows. Living in New York, I mean, there's no reason not to see every latest and greatest show. Once it's on TDF, I'm there,
Right.
It's interesting because the technology keeps changing and changing. And here you're a programmer and you're teaching programming. And just before we started recording, we talked a little bit about that. I mean, there's certain things that you have to keep up on all the time. It changes so much. I mean, for me, the best programming work I do is how much salt water I need to add to my dimmers to make it work properly. But that was a joke, Kat.
It's really...
she has no clue what you're talking about.
But as a teacher of programming, I mean, how many consoles do you know, and how do you how did you actually end up as a teacher and teaching programming?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I mean, I had, I've been programming on mostly Ion consoles, but EOS family consoles since 2010, maybe a little bit earlier, pretty much as soon as they were released. My mentor back in St. George said, sit down, read this manual. I need you to learn how to use this console. I'm not going to learn. It's your responsibility. So I read it cover to cover and have been programming ever since then, primarily EOS consoles. I've done a little bit on MA and a little bit on HOG, a little bit of CAMSYS, but I'm most comfortable with EOS programming. And I've programmed a bunch of shows. When I worked at Northern Stage, we had USA 829 designers in, designing all of our shows. And they, in addition to being their head electrician, I was their primary programmer for production. So I picked up a lot just from these mostly New York City-based designers who need to work quickly and know how to. And then lots of experience with Cirque du Soleil. I actually got to help them update their consoles for Ka. We swapped their programming over to EOS because they had been running up until just before the COVID pandemic. They were still on a HOG console for movers and Strand for their conventionals. It was very old school. So I got to be a part of that process of melding things together. So I feel like I've done a lot of interesting stuff on these consoles that not everybody has. And my cohort in grad school kind of picked up on that. So I think we had a lot of third years who were about to leave the program who were feeling like the console was an obstacle for them rather than a tool that they could use to execute their vision. They felt like they were limited to what they knew how to do on the console. So we kind of gathered, we said, Ben, who was teaching us at that time, still as an adjunct, not yet full-time, and they said, we want a programming class, and can Kat please teach it? Which was very flattering, but also very daunting because, you know, I know how to program for myself, and like, yes, I've done a lot, but it feels a lot more official when you have a course catalog behind you or whatever. So Ben agreed that we should co-teach the class. And he said, sure, you all can learn programming, but it has to be based in design. It's got to be a design class first because everything we do at Brooklyn College is about design. And so we came up with a curriculum together. And after a couple years teaching the class together, he's too busy to keep doing that. So he had me take it over. So now we're in our 4th iteration of the class, I believe. And it's great. We're teaching a mix of people who've done a few shows before or complete beginners. And it's very tailored to making theatrical shows happen.
Let me ask you a programming question because you've clearly been doing this. It sounds like since middle school. How is that relationship, you think, evolving between a programmer and a designer? And I guess the question is, in your perfect world, when you have a programmer doing everything for you, what are you wanting them to be to the design team?
Yeah, I think the ideal relationship is just a collaborator you can talk about the lighting with, forget the channel numbers, forget the exact keystrokes. When I'm designing, I'm usually having to feed people exact keystrokes. I'm usually having to check in and say, either we're in an AutoMark environment because that's what the person knows how to do, or if we're not, I might have to remind them, like, are we clean going into this? Like, what's going to happen when you hit go? Is it going to look nice? Or do we need to pause for a second while you fix this? So ideal would be not having to feed keystrokes, not having to feed channel numbers. And I haven't had this relationship yet, by the way. I'm usually programming for myself. But just a collaborator. And what I learned about from working on Maybe Happy Ending was just how much of a project manager the designer ends up being, where you're assembling this team. I think that the assistant is almost kind of a misnomer because it makes you think that maybe you will be helping the designer to do certain tasks when really they want you to own the task. And they want to, depending on the designer, not have to think about the follow spots, not have to worry about the programming getting done properly, but just know that they've assembled the right team that can do these things for them so they can focus on the big picture. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds to me like as a designer, you have no problems at all being your own programmer, which is a discussion we've had on this show many times. I kind of think that's the way the industry is going, certainly in my world, where they're hiring designers for television who they want to program to be their own programmer. This is on smaller studio projects, not something like, let's say, the Grammys or the Tonys, where you have so much going on. Do you have any problems designing and programming simultaneously?
Because I came up programming, no. I don't tend to have any problems with it, except that I would prefer not to have to. I think the controls are getting so intuitive now that up to a certain level of complexity with your light rig, and once you have a certain mastery over the console, you don't have to worry too much, and it becomes very quick to just, I have an idea, I can execute it, and that's great, but I don't think I could scale up to a really complex design and be able to be attentive to the director and the other collaborators on the team in the way that I would want to, while also having my hands tied up with the console. So I would love to move into a world where I'm not programming my own shows, even though I do feel very comfortable.
Our missing Lumen brother, David,
Here it comes.
Dreams of the day. I have to say this for him. Dreams of the day when there's an AI console that you talk to and it does all your programming for you.
We have that. We already have that, and you get a buddy out of it. So you can't go to dinner with AI yet. You can go to dinner
with the bot.
with your
you
programmer.
Could go with the bots from maybe Happy Ending.
Oh, that's true. If we had helper bots, a helper bot 7 or 8,
who could sit at the desk and it talks to it.
Mm-hmm. Ellen, I think that's the best answer we've had so far for
Yeah.
David's dumbass question
Right.
about AI boards. You know what, David? We can't have an AI board because you can't go to dinner with it.
yeah.
That's funny.
I don't want to see that job go away. I think the controls are intuitive enough if you find the right console, if you're working at the right scale. Yeah, I'm not super interested in AI personally. I have hang-ups about the environmental impact, and I have hang-ups from a labor standpoint as well. And I also just don't find the work as interesting as work done by humans. So something I am interested in, and this is something we also do with our programming class at Brooklyn College, is take advantage of Ben's resources and have a lot of guest professional Broadway programmers coming in. So we've had 2 so far. We have at least 1 or 2 scheduled. And this is a question that comes up. Our students ask, or I'll ask now, how are you using AI? And some of them aren't touching it at all. But some are like, I've completely automated several processes for myself, and it's great, and I love it. I think people can use it. I think the programmer is really your liaison between technology and design. And I think even if AI automates a lot of the tasks that a programmer does, or if a programmer chooses to automate those tasks using AI, they're still that person who is curious about technology, who is finding the ways we can use it for this artistic purpose. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
I've got some friends of a certain age who, I thought they were maybe a little full of it, but they're pretty good rock and roll designers. And we took a challenge with them. And they said, I can pick out the cues that the console's doing. And I can pick out the cues that has a human touch to it. And we were sitting there looking at something, and we talked to the designer of that particular show. And they picked out 3 distinct moments. And they said, you did this with no help, right? That's 100% coming out of your brain. And then they picked out a couple other cues and said, you're cheating here. That's the computer is making this work, right? And I was surprised at what their eyes were seeing and how they were taking it apart to identify it as being touched by a human or being touched by a machine. They had very strong feelings about AutoMark also. They like to know where their lights are at all times.
Yeah. AutoMark is a bit of a training wheels solution. And with our program, grad students must start to use referenced marks. Ideally, all of them will start to. Our industrious undergrads will start doing referenced marks, and AutoMark is really only for the very beginners.
So very prominently in your bio here, you say you are a member of the St. Regis Mojawk Tribe. What does that relationship mean to a young designer in New York City, and what is this heritage, and has it changed your worldview and how you create art? Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for asking about it. I have that in my bio because I'm hoping to engage with other Indigenous people. I know that there are some groups in New York City that are focused on theater from an Indigenous perspective. I would really love to get involved with them one day. But also because my mother she's who I get my indigenous heritage from. She raised us to be proud of where we came from. She said people think that Indigenous people are not around anymore, that they all went extinct, and it's important that people know you are Indigenous and you're participating in the arts or in music, whatever it is that you do. So I have a complicated relationship. To look at me is not to understand immediately that I'm an Indigenous person. But I always put it in there because it has affected my worldview. You hear things a little bit differently when you're Indigenous. Things that other people would not pause at might hit your ear in a negative way. The way people talk about politics and who belongs in this country, who does not belong in this country, all of that is kind of shaped for me by this Indigenous heritage I have. Everybody here pretty much is an illegal immigrant. So
Right.
everyone's been extended a lot of grace by people who didn't have such a choice.
Right.
So yeah, it colors my worldview. I like people to know it. I want them to engage with me about it, change some stereotypes that people might be holding on to about Indigenous people.
Good for you, Kat. You should be proud of your heritage and take advantage whenever you get the platform and opportunity to stand up for the Mohawk people and your mother's heritage as well. I can't wait to hear your Tony speech when you win your first Tony as being the first recipient of the Tony Award from the Mohawk Tribe.
That'd be a dream come true.
Not to bring politics into this, but the new director of Homeland Security is a member of the Cherokee Nation, which I find to be really sort of interesting and bizarre. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
There's also zero documented. There's no documentation that he is, and no one is stepping forward to claim him.
Yeah, something that's
because
been,
his Wikipedia page says he is, so very prominently a member of the Cherokee Nation.
Yeah.
So are they saying that's not true now?
How you can tell, and I grew up very far from my reservation. Akwesasne is upstate New York, and I grew up in southern Utah, like 3,000 miles away, maybe more. But the way you can tell, and my sister has run into at Columbia, more members of our tribe, cousins and things, is they'll ask your family name. You know, what names around the reservation would we know you by? And just by sharing your last name, they'll say, oh yeah, we've got cousins in common or whatever. So to be a member of a tribe is one thing, but to actually have connection to people living there now is the best way to verify a true Indigenous person.
Well, we had someone working for us at one point for LDI who eventually said that he was half, I forget what tribe, someplace from Georgia, I believe. And then he showed us videos. His father and grandfather are some kind of like celebrated hoop dancers. And it was really quite extraordinary what they could do. And he said he never took to it. He wasn't really talented, but it was quite amazing. So and it was just like a big powwow of some sort that was on television. And it brings tears to my eyes that there's so many people, including little kids, and they're still wearing the traditional costume and dancing and music and drumming. And I think it's fabulous personally.
Yeah, I need to go. Now that I'm closer to where my people are from, I need to take advantage of these opportunities.
Yeah.
Switching it 180 degrees from the discussion, as a young designer yourself, and one of the things we've been promoting on the show is emerging young designers in the theater world and in show business in general. But what advice would you give to somebody who's aspiring to become a lighting designer? What path would you tell them to follow? Yours was everybody that we've had. The path has been very unique. What would you tell designers? What do you tell your students when you're trying to offer them opportunities in showbiz?
I just had a conversation with them recently. A couple people turned up late to class, and I said, you know, the late policy is one thing, but the more important thing is what I'm going to notice about you. With everyone who goes to Brooklyn College, like you're studying from a Broadway designer, the chances are pretty slim that you're going to impress them in terms of existing knowledge of how we get lighting done. But the ways you can impress people are how seriously you take the work. So showing up on time, being present, engaging with the work, asking interesting questions, and it's just all the soft skills. I can teach anybody whatever they need to learn. Designers before me have done it. Designers after will do it. But we can't teach you to care about the work, and we can't teach you to show up if you're not. Well, no one's going to teach you if you don't show up. So it's really simple. Be present. I also think another piece of advice, probably more important, is if the only thing holding you back from doing something is fear, you should probably do it. So if you're scared to start freelancing, but you have a little bit of income saved up, just do it. If you're scared to move to New York City, but there's nothing really holding you back except for your own attitude, just do it. Life is short and you should try.
Let me spin that around. What advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
I'm really happy with the path I took. I was really involved with the arts already. I found a great mentor. You have to find a good mentor in this industry, at least one. And it can be tricky. I heard some advice. Wow, I wonder if it was from your podcast, because I am a longtime listener. But people said, look for a mentor. Obviously, any is better than none, but ideally you can find someone 10 to 15 years older than you. If they are much older than that, they might be too far removed from where you are in your career, or they may have come up in a time that no longer applies, different circumstances. But if they're too near in your age, then they're going to lack perspective. That is the most valuable thing you can get from a mentor. The ability to see the trajectory that you're on and course correct if needed, or encourage you where they should. You need a little distance, but not too much distance from your mentor.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very smart.
Speaking of mentors, I also asked Ben Stanton if he wouldn't mind telling me what he thinks of Kat Morrill. And I'm going to embarrass you now and tell you word for word what he told me. Kat is a terrific person, a great assistant, and we've done a lot of work together since she graduated from my program. She was very important to me. It was in the first ever class I taught at Brooklyn College, a concert and design programming class. Kat has stood out from the beginning. I'm thrilled to watch her build her career and to be able to help her whenever I can. Congratulations, Kat. It sounds like you are definitely on the way to
That's
a successful
lovely.
career.
Thank you. That's so
That is
sweet.
really lovely.
So your advice to your 15-year-old self is stay the course, don't change a darn thing. You're on track.
Yeah. Great.
Kat, thank you for taking the time to join us today. The rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you spent another Saturday
Paradise of St. Bart's, the Lone Star State, and the entertainment capital of the world, New York City.
And be sure to join us next week when we dive into more lighting shenanigans and serve up a fresh, piping hot casserole of nonsense. Although I'd like to say that Kat was a wonderful, wonderful interview to chat with today, and not a lot of nonsense. I think a lot of young designers will really enjoy listening to you. You're very perceptive and informative. I really enjoyed meeting you.
Thank
Agreed.
you. I enjoyed meeting you too. I have to say, it's a dream come true. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent, especially at Cirque du Soleil, cleaning scrollers and listening to Light Talk. Okay, I'll say this line for you. Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
Be sure to tune in next Saturday morning. It'll be a special show, a conversation with Bruce Rogers, the leader of Tribe and production designer for the last 20 Super Bowl halftime shows, including the recent Super Bowl 60. So bye-bye from Light Talk, and thank you, Kat.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.